Well, Wild Atlantic Nature is a large life integrated project that covers a large proportion of Ireland's Blanca Bog SACs, or special areas of conservation within the Natura 2000 network. And it's really in response to poor performance, poor quality, or I suppose failure to meet our objectives in terms of the sites and the quality, ongoing activities in those, from turf cutting through heavy grazing that causes erosion and the loss of these. So the degradation, the ongoing degradation of those sites as it was at the time, that was the key motivation there as well. So those 35 sites are in the northwest of Ireland. So they stretch in the northern tip of Ireland from County Donegal down as far as Galway or thereabouts. So it's the northwestern quarter of Ireland. And they were chosen, I suppose, from a practical perspective in terms of those 35 in, a defined area. And that in itself would be at least perhaps somewhat handleable as such. So that was the primary driver. I mean, the reality is that there are a total of 55 Natura 2000 Blanca Bog sites in Ireland. And as our project has grown and expanded, we've now started to branch into all of those other sites as well, those other 20 sites. So now we're pretty much looking at about 55 of Ireland's Natura 2000 sites there as well. At times it feels like we're herding cats, but it works very well. The most important thing, and one thing I mentioned earlier in my presentation, was the importance of clear objectives. And there is a point that the objectives are similar across all stakeholders. And in our case, quality is the key one. So if you had to boil our project down, seeking high quality habitats is the most important aspect. The function of those, the quality of how those ecosystems function is really important. And then the whole ethos is the idea of supporting activities through finance and through technical assistance of improving other standards to reach a higher quality. So from the perspective of trying to pull together, we're coordinated within National Parks and Wildlife Service, Ireland's managing authority in nature, and we have 9 other associated beneficiaries, from an organisational perspective. And then of course between community groups in each of the different areas, farming organisations, because probably our most important stakeholder are farmers, and in the Irish context, most of our lands, 80, 85, 90% of our lands are privately owned. So, and the average farm size is about 50 hectares, 40 to 50 hectares in these areas. So there's a considerable range of stakeholders there and, throughout. But ultimately, assessing the needs of each of the stakeholders is very important from a farmer's perspective. What are the struggles? What are the things that they need in terms of sustainability to keep family farms going? And then we look at how across the stakeholders, how and what compatibilities are there, and ultimately high quality equals better outputs, better payments for farmers, better results from a European Commission perspective, from an Irish state perspective, and so on. The results-based approach to agri-environment payments, the ORBAPS approach, is one whereby the higher the ecological quality, the higher the score that we assign, and the higher the score, the higher the farmer payment is. We start with the best of the best, and that forms the top line. So that's our 10 out of 10. And that conforms to a site and a scenario that meets all of the objectives in terms of the science, in water quality, in nature value, and in terms of our Article 17 reporting and all of these in Habitats Directive, climate benefits and so on. So it's the best of the best. And from there then we look at that spectrum as that declines in quality, the different threats and pressures that may accrue to such a site. And we boil that down to very I won't say simple necessarily, but very visual cues. Are there drains? Is there bare peat evident? And what proportion of the site has bare peat? Are there invasive species? Are there any threats or other pressures? And then they're the negative, I suppose, scores on the scorecard. What are the positives? So what are the cover of positive indicators? Like, what is the structure of vegetation within that area? And like, that's a really, really important aspect to it. Now, in terms of the broader approach with results-based payments, it very much normalizes the idea of agri-environment payments. And something farmers would be very familiar with is that they bring animals to the market. The better the quality of those animals, the higher the price that they will receive at the market. The poorer the quality, the poorer the price the farmer will receive. And this is the exact same. So the better and the more that a farmer produces in terms of their ecosystem outputs, in terms of nature, or whatever your target, in our case, quality of blanket bogs and associated habitats, the better that they will do. So then they can invest in improving the ecological quality, and they can improve their income as a result of that. And of course, vital in that is the supports to be able to do that through funding, technical expertise and advice. These are really, really important questions, and we think of this kind of off-ramp. If you're on a road, where are you going to get off? You need to know that before you get on the road as such. And in the context of our programme, all of the different aspects that we design and develop, we have usually a policy in mind that needs to adjust and adapt with and align with. In the case of the results-based payments, we're looking at the Common Agricultural Policy and Ireland's CAP strategic plan. Mm-hmm. We need to know, and we do an analysis and so on, and work with our colleagues in the Department of Agriculture in determining where are the funding mechanisms within that. How can we support that? How can we support the delivery of Ireland's objectives in Common Agricultural Policy? And how can we support and deliver the nature objectives in that as well? So that's an example where in 2023 we would have fed a lot of our work from our initial pilot into the national programme. And we will do that again in 2028. And so we would see that that's the off-ramp, we'd say, for our agricultural approach there as well. In terms of other initiatives that we have, for example, where we're trying to reduce the burning of turf or the cutting of peat from our protected areas and other areas for that matter, we're going through an energy retrofit programme. We're piloting that within Wild Atlantic Nature, Life IP, and we're building that into the national energy retrofitting programme, from a climate perspective, trying to reduce carbon emissions, etc., etc. So we see there are two examples of how we develop pilots and we identify the policies, the key policies that can deliver those and the mechanisms that can deliver those from then on. And it's the same throughout our natural communities approach as well, similar to that, where we've a lot of people working full-time on nature restoration, primarily farmers and fishers. And again, we have identified who are the important actors to deliver that, who manages those, and already we have in place structures within government to be able to do that.